This is Ayurveda Health and Wellness Podcast, where you get to meet the best Ayurveda practitioners so that you can transform your life through Ayurvedic science. Hello and welcome again to Ayurveda Health and Wellness Podcast with me, Hitesh Anand. Again, today we have Dr. Kanika Verma with us, and today we are going to talk about herbal extract and what Ayurveda has to say about them. Hi, Kanika. Let's start with our first question. How are herbal extract different from, the traditional Ayurvedic powders or churna, as we call them?
Herbal extracts have a lot of difference. If you look at the normal Ayurvedic churna or normal Ayurvedic powder, they use the entire herb. Sometimes they use some parts like leaves, or in case of ashwagandha, they use roots. Sometimes they use all the parts of the plants like panchang, leaves, fruit, leaf, stem, roots, flower, everything. Okay. So in this way, it is made, and it is a very natural process. They take the plant, they take the root, whatever part they are planning to take, and then they dry it in the sunlight. They manually, make a powder. Nowadays, they are using machine, but the ideal way is to make a powder manually, because there's no excess heat production when you're using it, when you're doing it manually by your own hands. Whereas in the machine, the speed is very fast, and that heat kills the basic nutrients present inside that herb. So, manual process that goes very gradually is the best way. And in this way, they prepare this churna or powder. Okay. Whereas if you look at herbal extracts, they are completely different in many, many ways. One of the most important thing is that most of these herbal extracts have one bioactive ingredient, which is positioned as to be the most effective, and these herbal extracts spike up the concentration of that bioactive ingredient. So in this way, they are unnatural. For example, if you take turmeric, now scientists have isolated one bioactive compound in turmeric, that is curcuminoid, and now the turmeric that is available in the market, the turmeric extracts or the turmeric capsules, they have spiked up the concentration of curcumin in that the extract. So this extract is not natural. It doesn't exist in nature.
Right.
It doesn't exist in nature. In nature, all the compounds of turmeric are balanced. We see, many times it so happens that we figure out that there is one bioactive compound, and in many cases, that bioactive compound is not the only one. There are multiple other bioactive compounds which we might not have figured out yet. And besides, this bioactive compound, for example, in case of turmeric, if we take curcuminoid in natural turmeric powder, it is supported or balanced by many other bioactive compounds. And probably these combination, this balance of multiple bioactive compounds help curcuminoid to have its best effect. Right? But in case of herbal extracts, curcuminoid is spiked up. So the balance is not there. There's one bioactive ingredient which is more. So this is as good as some modern medicine, right? When you're using the extract of, let's say paracetamol, there's one single compound that you're using, and that single compound has a very, very harsh effect. Knife. We can use it for cutting vegetables. We can use it for killing people also. So that sharpness, the amount of harshness which is present in one single ingredient is much more compared to a balanced combination of multiple compounds which naturally exist in nature. But what we do in case of herbal extracts, we we disrupt that natural balance of compounds. We spike up one compound which we think is more effective, and we give it to the person. You see, in many scientific in many scientific experiments, it has been seen that turmeric, which is normal turmeric, okay, and the turmeric with spiked up curcumin, they both have same effect, almost same effect. In fact, the turmeric, which does not have spiked up curcumin, produce better effect. But because that normal turmeric cannot be marketed with premium, pricing, that's why people are selling more of spiked up curcumin. So this is the only reason probably why herbal extracts are selling more, because of this marketing push. There's no evidence that herbal extracts have better impact. In fact, there have been reported side effects of herbal extracts where the one bioactive compound has been spiked up. So yes, this is a huge difference between the normal Ayurvedic churn and the herbal extract. The herbal extract is actually abnormal. It's unnatural.
Right. So I guess in a way you have answered my next question as well. Do they have better effect better effect than the normal Ayurvedic herbs? So that's not the case. In fact, they are rather harmful in certain ways when it comes to comparing them with the Ayurvedic herbs. Okay, that makes sense. So in terms of the side effects, as you explained about taking an example of turmeric and how it can have side effects if it's one of the element or the compound is spiked. What could be the side effects?
There can be huge side effects. There can be innumerous side effects depending on the herb and the organ that it is targeted at. For example, Kawa it's a drug that was used in Oceanica for multiple health conditions. I was very successfully used. It's been there for thousands of years. Okay, so now scientists, they found Kawa and they spiked up one ingredient and then started selling that concentrated, 1,000 times concentrated extract of Kawa, and then it was reported that this concentration of Kawa, it causes severe liver toxicity. Because that one ingredient, one bioactive compound is spiked up, it harms liver, because liver is the organ that detoxifies. So if you're putting any kind of toxin inside the body, it will have an immediate impact on liver. You'll be surprised to know antibiotics, they have a detrimental effect on liver. Everyone knows that. Kawa also had this spiked up, this extracted Kawa had a similar effect than that, like that antibiotic. So these are the side effects, and these are not less side effects. It was so severe. There were so many reports of such side effects by Kawa that FDA actually flagged it for liver toxicity. So you see, the herb that has been in use for thousands of years without any problem in the native tribal population was flagged for liver toxicity because of extract formation. Because we messed up the natural balance of the herb, we spiked up one ingredient, and that one ingredient caused liver toxicity because there was no balance of other ingredients. So this is one way. This is one side effect. Besides, if you talk about effects, okay, the effect is also reduced. Most of these extracts, they are produced in the base of alcohol. Okay, so when you're using alcohol, each plant ingredient, whether you take churna or this decoction, they attract a certain level of gut bacteria, and they also attract a certain amount of microbes that they're friendly microbes. Okay, they come and help the body, and these plants, these churna, this powder attracts these microbes. So, when you're using alcohol as a base, this alcohol is a disinfectant. It kills
Right.
the microbes, right? So, just for the sake of preservation or better shelf life, we are killing the very purpose of using a churna or a powder. These extracts that are made in the base of alcohol, they do not allow these microbes, these friendly pathogens, sorry, friendly organisms to come in the gut and
Right.
do their work. So basically, we are
Purpose of
defeating the purpose of having that
yeah,
plant
yeah,
extract in the
that's
first
true.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
also, I can guess this also may lead to, misinformation about the herbs or the Ayurveda or the practice in general, because, if there's a side effect from one of the herbs, FDA, as you said, kava, they blocked it, flagged it, and then, the people would think, kava is not good for their health. That's a misinformation, because
yes,
they flagged it because there was a spike in certain spiked compound in it, and that was what was causing the problem, not the kava itself in its natural form. So that's also something misleading, and which harms the greater good that these natural herbs cause. So yeah, I mean, I guess somewhere down the line, these companies or the scientific community who are spiking up these compounds are responsible for these things, and they should be held responsible, or either come up with a legitimate an explanation of or the research, of why they are doing this, and should they do these or not.
yes, and the problem is that they use the name of Ayurveda. In India, it is said that okay, if you can quote Charak Sanhita, then it's okay. You can use the, but you have to use the herb in the way it is being prescribed in that particular text. But when you go outside, there's no such regulation, and many people are using the name of Ayurveda to promote these extracts. I've come across many such examples where ashwagandha, bethanoid is the bioactive ingredient. It's been spiked up 1,000 times, and the people, the marketing people, they're saying that because it has been spiked up thousand
It's
times,
more
it will help you perform better sexually and so on and so forth. And yes, there are desperate people who want to buy, who are in some pain, or they need some medical attention. They would go and buy these herbs, and this is not the safe herbal preparation. This is a drug. When you're using too much of something, it becomes a drug. For example, alcohol. When you're using too much of alcohol, you get addicted to it. It becomes a drug. Your body needs that kick
that's right.
to start working. So if we are using these unnatural, these are completely unnatural. They have nothing to do with Ayurveda. If someone says that herbal extracts, they belong to Ayurveda, and there's ashwagandha, which is mentioned in Ayurveda, and therefore these herbal extracts, they're Ayurvedic. Please don't believe it, because that's not true. Herbal extracts are using Ayurveda in the way of modern medicine, which is it'll not
Yeah.
work. Ayurveda is very
No,
simple.
yeah, that's right. I mean, and that also calls for a proper regulation on what you can call Ayurvedic or not. I mean, there should be probably a global body who can regulate these things. That this is what you can call Ayurvedic, and this is not. This is not Ayurvedic, because anyone can just use random herbs and say, this is Ayurvedic, and everything can be related to Ayurveda anyhow, if you want to relate it. And you can use the wrong form, wrong kind of the practice, and say, that's Ayurvedic, which is true. Yeah, we should be mindful about and we should be aware about what we are buying, if you're, because I've seen myself, there's so many of the companies selling capsules, saying it Ayurvedic capsules, and it's a huge market that is building up. And I mean, what I would say is it should not be built on mistrust and misinformation.
Yeah.
So, okay, yeah, that's good to know. So, I mean, naturally, then my next question would be, how do we identify, potential benefits or side effect of the herbal extracts? Uh, how do we understand like this is good for us and or it might harm us? Or is it like the case that it's always harmful and never useful?
After practicing Ayurveda for many years, I've come to understand that whatever is complicated, whatever is unnatural, is not Ayurveda. Because Ayurveda is so simple in its approach. It's so simple. Where it says that you should not charge consultation fees from a person who's sick and suffering. It's basically anything which can be made manually is Ayurvedic. If you have to judge whether something is truly Ayurvedic or not, ask yourself if you can make it at home. If you can make it at home, then it is Ayurvedic. If you cannot make it at home, obviously there are some complicated preparations in Ayurveda also. But yes, if you are looking at some herbal preparation, not the heavy metal medicines, these are completely different. But if you're looking at herbal preparation, then you should be able to make it at home. I would say that this is one of the tests. And as for herbal extracts, they are not Ayurvedic. They are just conceptually, they are not Ayurvedic. Because if someone says, there is 95% of curcumin in this turmeric, it is not natural. It is not natural. And also that most of these herbs are genetically modified to grow in specific area. Ayurveda says what is local is the best. So if you're growing ashwagandha in some freezing climate because you have genetically modified it and then you're selling it with 95% of flavonoid, it's not Ayurveda. It's not Ayurveda because Ayurveda says that something which is local, seasonal and organic, something which naturally grows in its season. Only that produce you should use. If some produce goes out of season, that means it's out of balance. Actually, you should not use grains that are growing out of season. That means we should not use any of the genetically modified crops because they grow out of season. They grow out of their normal soil condition, everything. They are
Yeah, I mean
absolutely
that also reminds me of something that I observe here in UK after moving from India. In India we have so many seasonal foods and seasonal. I mean, not so many. We have entirely everything is seasonal in India. Whatever you eat is mostly is seasonal. All the vegetables, fruits, and everything. Here, very few things are seasonal, and almost all the things you will find in supermarkets you can get throughout the year. So I mean this, and the reason is it's not just even about the cultivation happening here. Everything can be important from some part of the world. So while you can like for example mangoes up here come up are grown in summers in India. There might be some place in Africa where mangoes are grown in some other calendar month, so they will be imported from there. So I mean there are everything is available throughout the year. There's no seasonality, concept of seasonality, which kind of surprised me initially, when you get everything throughout the year, how can they be, good for us? And this also reminds me of our discussion on our last episode about natural farming, because the best way to do farming is doing it naturally, and how when we are genetically modifying these things, be it anything, just the grains, these are medicinal herbs we are talking about. We are talking about something medicinal, so which become unnatural first, and then how can they work on you in a proper way when they are not natural at all? So so I understand what you're saying. Yes, please go on.
Yeah. So, you know what? The worst part is that people, because they are disillusioned from the modern medicine, they are now moving towards natural and herbal products. And unfortunately, when they get side effect from herbal products, then it becomes very sad, because many of these people, they need medical attention in some urgent health complication. For example, if there is a person who is using turmeric for psoriasis, and if that person gets side effects, or some other, many people use turmeric for
Right.
cancer because it has come up as a very good anti-cancer agent. So when you're using unnatural turmeric for diseases, severe diseases like cancer, and then it kicks back, then it backfires, that becomes a major issue. And many cases this has happened where people, and it's very sad because they come to natural medicine with lots of hope, and then they get bad side effect and probably no effect or something like this. So this is one of the reasons why herbal medicine fails to have an effect, because it is again unnatural. You see, I'll tell you why we are getting so many autoimmune disorders now. Inflammatory disorders, autoimmune disorders, they spiked up in past 2 to 3 decades because of the introduction. It is significant that after the introduction of genetically modified crops, these things have
Right.
spiked up. Okay, so what happens when I'll give you an example. What happens if I give you 10 heads so that you will be able to work at 10 times your capacity, and then you go back to your home and your wife sees you with 10 heads, and then she's scared. I don't think she's gonna be very happy. So she's scared and she probably attacks
Yeah.
you. So when these modified forms of extracts, or like 95% curcumoid and stuff, they enter the body is not able to recognize what is this. This is not turmeric, because our brain is a mini cosmos. We have all the information here, what turmeric looks like, what ashwagandha looks like, everything. Our body knows these herbs.
Right.
Somehow they are in sync. So when natural turmeric enters the body entertains it, body knows it. Okay, this is turmeric, it is here to help me. But when this genetically modified, this extracted turmeric with 1,000 times of curcumide, it enters the body is not able to recognize. Okay, this doesn't look like turmeric. I don't think it is there to help me. Probably it is a foreign
Exactly.
invader. Let us attack. Okay, so instead of causing benefit, instead of bringing benefits, these herbs may spike up the autoimmune response inside body. So if you're using it for some autoimmune disorder like rheumatoid arthritis, see, turmeric is being promoted for rheumatoid arthritis, and now this person has this turmeric and the body doesn't respond, or probably there's no effect. The disease spikes up because the body doesn't recognize it as turmeric. This is another thing to attack. So the body attacks this turmeric, the body attacks the cells that absorb this turmeric, and again the body is killing its own cells. So what are we trying to do? This is not medicine, and people are being sold this at a premium price. You've been like, how to put it, like you're being sold poison for double the price, so paying premium for it. So it's not that bad, but yes, it has no
Yeah.
effect.
I mean, being ethical is very important while you're selling anything. And when it comes to Ayurveda, it is all the more important that, because, or else it won't work, and it would eventually, you will end up, disgracing the Ayurvedic practice totally, and which is what, and what I'm concerned about, this is just the start of Ayurveda. People are now realizing this, and at the very beginning, these things have started coming up. And if we do not control them, this is going to backfire on the practice itself. That is why I was, as I was saying earlier, it's important to have a regulation. Why no one, it's like for my brand, I can't just go on and put a label that we are vegan brand unless there is some sort of check, like how come we are vegan. So again, this check
Yes.
is important, as there are bodies who are doing the check on the products, like if they are actually vegan, if they are actually organic, for in terms of organic, there are certifications that make sure that this is organic. So there has to be a certification, a third party body that makes sure that these products are Ayurvedic before you actually call them Ayurvedic. So yeah, that's that's a very legit point. Yeah. Great. So, yeah, please,
So
Kanika, is anything would you would like to mention more about extracts and
yeah, there's one very, very funny thing with extracts is that you never know whether the bioactive compound that you're actually focusing is the bioactive compound. For example, there's so much of shouting about curcumoid in turmeric or withenoid in ashwagandha. But, there was a research on St. Joan wort, and they found that hypericin is one of the bioactive ingredients. So they started, spiking up the concentration of hypericin, and they started selling. But after years, they found that that was not the actual bioactive ingredient. There was some other ingredient. It was called, I'm forgetting the name of that. But there was another ingredient that was actually the
so?
bioactive ingredient.
I mean,
So
yeah, I'm a little surprised, for the scientific community as a whole. I mean, the guys, who are doing this, there has to be a scientific process, and before you reach to a conclusion, you have to go through rigorous, you know, testing before you can actually claim
testing.
anything. And how can are these guys? I mean, people spiking the compounds and saying that this will work without doing right amount of testing, or are they actually doing the testing and they're coming up with the results, and then what's happening
Uh,
actually?
yeah, actually, what happens when you're using some herbal compound, so they have a history. For example, if you go to Amazon, they have their own herbs, which the tribals have been using for years. And if you go to India, you have this entire Ayurveda. Then you go to China, they have ginseng, and so these people have been already
Yeah.
using it for thousands of years. So they have a history of use. But so what these people do, they pick up one such herb. Okay, for example, let us pick up ashwagandha. It has a history of 5,000 years old. It's been in use and it has been documented. Fine, all this. Okay, so what they do a small pilot study. They use some 50, 100 people and some 5, 6 studies around. So they do this, and then they say, okay, fine, this is the herb, this is the next gem for marketing. Now it happens like this. So let's do it. And for the safety purpose, they say that, okay, it's been already used for so many thousands of years, and it is safe. But the herb that was already used for 1,000 years, it was normal. It was not spiked up. What these people do, in order to create a premium market, they spike up one concentration of bioactive ingredient, which you cannot do at home. Okay, and then they start charging premium for it. This is unnatural. You use the original kava, it will have no side effect. You use original ashwagandha, it will have no side effect. You use the normal powder, it is so mild. It produces no side effect. The effects are slow. The effects are also not very, you don't
Yeah,
get effects overnight.
that's right.
Yeah, you don't get effects overnight. There's a lot of talk happening about hemp. 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 And hemp is now coming up as the next painkiller, because natural painkiller, because painkillers, there were so many disorders. Like if you look at joint pain, after a point in time, there's no treatment. You just need
Right.
painkillers. Right, so these painkillers, they can severely damage the entire system. Now they need a natural painkiller, which is hemp. But unfortunately, you will not find natural hemp anymore. The species is almost extinct because there have been so many modifications to spike up the bioactive ingredient. There's one normal hemp. If you use it, it will not cause side effects. It has been used for thousands of years. Actually, you drink hemp
Yeah.
in Holi.
Yeah,
If you remember, in India, they do it. right? Nobody dies of it, okay? But the hemp available today, it is so spiked up. It is no longer herb. It is no longer Ayurvedic. It is a drug. It is a drug. It's so spiked up. Your body will get addicted to it. So that is not Ayurveda. And if these people keep on doing this, it'll damage the image of Ayurveda. It'll damage the image of this ancient wisdom, natural things, because they're using it in a different way.
I would say they are actually, what they are doing is they're taking natural ways and trying to replicate the pharma style of manufacturing.
Yes, exactly.
You're not trying to move away from big pharma and today's pharmaceutical industry. You are again taking natural bit and making them into an industry which has already caused so much problems to the world. So this is also something that we should understand, that if you want to be natural, if you want to get the benefits of natural things, then you have to be natural. You have to keep those things natural.
Yes.
Consume those things in a natural way as they have been provided by the nature itself. That, and I guess that's something that has become so common in everything. We try to manipulate and change the nature as per our requirements, rather than changing ourselves or being aligned with the nature. We are trying to change the nature to suit our needs, and that is where problem starts. And then eventually, you think that this thing is not working and this thing is wrong, and there's a climate problem and there's this problem, that problem. But the problem starts when you are not aligning yourself with the nature. And yeah, that's again, that's a very evident case here as well. Great, Kanika. I guess there was so much of knowledge again here, and I'm sure our viewers and listeners will come to know about these extracts, and they will be aware about before buying anything that is Ayurveda. More than extract, I would say this episode was more about being Ayurvedic, buying Ayurvedic or non-Ayurvedic, or saving yourself from this misinformation, which can actually harm you rather than benefiting you. So this is, I guess, it's a very vital piece of information that should be shared with more people, so that they can prevent the harmful the losses or side effects, and gain from buying the right stuff, right products, which again relates more of to the market, and it is important because our industry is developing around Ayurveda, so it is important the right kind of information goes in, for sure. This was a different kind of podcast, but then again, it was a really interesting and very important one, I would say. So, okay. So, anything you would like to add, Kanika?
Yes, I would say that the bottom line is, don't buy herbal extracts. They are not required. They will not bring any benefit to you. You see, Bible says that God protects the meek. Yeah. So I have seen over the years that the poor people, the people who don't have money to buy all these expensive and fancy products, they never suffer from all these complicated disorders like cancer and so on and so forth. But people who have access to the exotic foods like kiwi in India, I don't know why they're selling kiwi in India. So all these people will end up spending their money on medicines because they are buying all these things. So it's better to not indulge in anything which is not natural just for the fun of it, or because it will give you some kind of extra.
Yeah, it also becomes sort of a status symbol sometime, Oh yeah, I can.
Status symbol. So don't use herbal extracts. So let's be simple.
Sure.
Don't use herbal extracts.
Right. That was really great. Thank you, Kanika, once again for coming onto the podcast and giving so much of valuable information to us. And I'm really hopeful that our viewers and listeners will learn and get a lot of benefits from this episode as well. So till next episode, everyone, thanks for joining us, and we will see you again next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed our podcast. Do not forget to follow us or subscribe. This podcast is brought to you by Kiwi Towels, bringing Ayurvedic dyeing to the modern world.